The bell above the diner door gave its usual cheerful jingle, but the sound seemed to stretch a little longer when 6 leather-clad bikers stepped inside. Their boots were heavy against the checkered floor, denim worn from long miles on American highways. The red and white patch of the Hells Angels stood out boldly against black leather vests. Forks paused halfway to mouths. A low murmur drifted across the room before fading into cautious silence. They weren't loud. They didn't swagger. They simply moved toward a booth near the window, the one that could fit them all, and slid in with quiet efficiency. The waitress, Carol, who had worked at the diner for 22 years, walked over with a pot of coffee. She knew them. They came through town a few times each summer. They were polite. They tipped well. They kept to themselves. Still, appearances were powerful things. At a small corner table near the pie display sat an elderly woman in a neatly pressed pale blue cardigan. A tiny silver cross rested at her collarbone. Her white hair was curled carefully, as if she had taken extra time that morning. In front of her was a single cup of tea and an untouched slice of apple pie. She had been watching the bikers since they entered, not with fear, but with a nervous kind of determination. Her name was Margaret. Today she was 86. She checked the small gold watch on her wrist, the same watch her late husband had given her decades ago. At exactly noon every year, her son used to walk through those diner doors, grinning, pretending he'd forgotten her birthday until the very last second. He would kiss her cheek, order her favorite pie, and insist on paying. Last year, that chair across from her stayed empty. This year, she had promised herself she wouldn't cry in public. Margaret drew in a slow breath and pushed herself up with careful hands. The room seemed to tighten as she made her way toward the booth of bikers. One of the men noticed her first and straightened immediately. "Ma'am," he said respectfully. Her voice trembled only slightly. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," the gray-bearded biker replied, removing his sunglasses. She clasped her hands together. "I know this sounds foolish, but can one of you pretend to be my son today?" The men exchanged startled glances. "It's my birthday," she continued softly. "My boy passed last year. We used to have lunch together right here. I just don't want to sit alone while everyone else has family." The biggest of the bikers stood up slowly, his chair scraping gently against the tile. His expression had changed completely. "What was he like?" he asked. Margaret's eyes warmed. Tall, stubborn, loved motorcycles when he was young, thought he could fix anything. A faint smile tugged at several faces around the table. "Well," the biker said, offering his arm with surprising gentleness, "sounds like he'd fit right in." What Margaret didn't notice that afternoon was the man seated alone near the back wall, his phone tilted just slightly above his coffee mug. He had started recording the moment the Hells Angels walked in. In his mind, groups like them only meant one thing: trouble. And trouble made good content. At first, the footage seemed promising. Leather vests, heavy boots, a fragile elderly woman approaching their table. He imagined the caption before he even left the diner. But then the scene shifted. Instead of intimidation, he captured the gray-bearded biker standing to offer Margaret his seat. Instead of harsh words, there was laughter, deep, genuine laughter, as she described her son's failed attempt to rebuild a motorcycle engine at 16. One of the bikers wiped frosting from his beard after insisting she cut the first slice of birthday cake. Another carefully adjusted her chair so she wouldn't have to twist her back. Still, later that evening, the man uploaded a short cropped clip. The angle made it look tense, ominous. His caption hinted at concern. "Elderly woman surrounded by bikers at local diner. Should we be worried?" The video spread quickly, but the full story spread faster. Carol, the waitress, posted her own account online. So did a young couple who had been sitting near the window. They shared longer clips, the part where Margaret asked, "Can you pretend to be my son today?" The part where the gray-bearded biker replied, "We'd be honored, Mom." The part where the entire diner joined in singing "Happy Birthday." By morning, the original video's tone had backfired. Thousands of comments poured in, not criticizing the bikers, but praising them. Veterans wrote about brotherhood. Mothers shared stories of sons lost too soon. Strangers admitted they had judged too quickly. The next afternoon, the bikers returned to the diner. This time, the atmosphere was different. Several townspeople nodded as they walked in. A man near the counter even lifted his coffee cup in greeting. The same man who had posted the video stood awkwardly when Margaret entered, escorted gently by the gray-bearded biker. "I owe you all an apology," he said, voice tight. "I assumed the worst." The biker shrugged. "Happens." Margaret looked around at the room, no longer tense but warm. "My son used to say a man shows his true character when no one expects anything from him." She squeezed the biker's hand. "You boys gave me more than lunch," she whispered. "You gave me a memory." And from that year on, every birthday at that diner included roaring engines outside and a table full of family inside.